Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Subscription Scaled. I'm your host, Nick Frederick. With me today is Hadi Hariri, who is the VP of Developer Advocacy at JetBrains. Hadi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, I was telling you just a second ago that my developers were pretty excited that I was talking to somebody from JetBrains. So, for the listeners that don't know, tell us what JetBrains is and a little bit more about what your role is there.
So at JetBrains, we make developer tools, or I mean IDEs. We started out with creating a plugin for an existing IDE, which is an integrated development environment. And then from there on, we expanded to making our own IDE. And now I think we've got like 20 plus IDEs and teamware tools. And we basically make the tools that allow you to write software, whether it's Java, C Sharp, Kotlin, which is our own language, a variety of languages we support.
Gotcha. So, again, your role as developer advocacy, that's not a common role. So, what does that mean at
Yeah.
JetBrains?
So actually, when I first started, I was my title was a technical evangelist, and
Okay.
which wasn't that common either. And people, especially outside of IT, they would say evangelist. What is that? Is this religious or something? I'm like, no, we go around talking about our technology. So essentially, my role is to help folks adopt technologies. At JetBrains, we help with different technologies that is in the industry, and then by means of our tools. And then we also get feedback from our customers and share that feedback with the product teams, and kind of being a bridge, one of the bridges between customers and the product teams, right? But most of our activities involve creating content, whether it's speaking at conferences, whether it's creating video content, podcasts. I mean, I have my own podcast, so it's a bunch of different activities.
Gotcha.
And then I lead the team of developer advocates, which I think we're about 20 something developer advocates now at JetBrains.
Wow. That's great. So, how does JetBrains monetize all of this all of these products that you're building?
Yeah, we sell them. It's actually kind of strange, because I mean, in the developer community, there is this notion that things have to generally be free, and to especially most of our competitors are free. Most of our competitors are open source. So it's already a challenge to sell products in a market that has come to expect many things to be free. I mean, even if you look at services nowadays, cloud services, right? Most of them are either being subsidized by other means, or they give you pretty much a very good set of features for free, and then they try and upsell you. So we started out with selling our tools and selling our IDEs. And at the time that we started, there weren't that many in the market. And then at some point, I mean, to give some context, one of our largest best-selling products is called IntelliJ IDEA, which is a IDE for Java and many other languages. And at the time that we started, there wasn't much. And then an open source project was initiated by IBM, which was called Eclipse. And it was open source and free. And, now we're in a market where our main competitor is not only has appeared, but it's free. And so we continue to we continue to pursue our endeavor of thinking that people should be paying for tools.
Yeah.
And we used to sell it on a basically a license model, right? Where you buy the tool and you own the tool. And then at some point, that switched over to subscriptions.
Okay. Is it 100% subscriptions now, or are you still?
It is pretty much 100% subscription. Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have any tool that is kind of like sold as a one-off license. Well, I'm lying. We do have some tools that are sold as a license, but then if you want to buy an upgrade, you have to buy the renewal license there. And to be clear, like we would, like many software back in the old days, we used to sell the software, and then if you wanted to buy an upgrade, You would purchase the upgrade. If you
Right.
didn't, you'd still have that software and still use it.
Yeah. Maintenance and support and all of those things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Although to be honest with you, we never distinguished. So if someone,
Okay.
we didn't have private forums. If someone wanted to ask a question, we didn't. It wasn't. We didn't say, well, you're not a customer, you're not a paying customer, we're not going to answer you. It was we didn't discriminate in that sense.
Yeah. Gotcha. Through that transition, was that difficult, or did you find that your communities that were already ingrained in your products were like, yeah, this works. I'm happy to go over to the subscription model.
Yeah, good question. No, it wasn't actually that smooth. Far from it.
Okay.
So when we did this, I can't even remember when it was. It was many, many, many years ago. And when we did this, we had, I mean, we had a few reasons that we wanted to do it, right? We wanted to basically, if you're in software development, you're aware of the idea that you constantly have to create new features in order to entice people to buy the next version, right? And then this kind of drives the way that you are developing the software. You start
Right.
to put so much attention to new features, and sometimes you start to forget about the other things, which is, fixing other features and maintenance and bugs and stuff like that. And it wasn't like we were completely abandoning it, but there was such a drive to get new features out. And we started to analyze our market, and we're thinking, okay, so we've got all of these customers that are purchasing our software, but we've got all of these other customers and that are using our software and have been using it for years.
Yeah.
And yet the balance of income isn't, it's not proportional. We have way more income from new customers than we do from existing customers. And it's not an unlimited market. Like the developers, it does still grow, but at some point you do reach saturation. And we wanted to try and make sure that we continue to have a sustainable model. So we said, okay, you know what? The other thing that we're noticing in the community, in the industry, is that people are no longer just using one language, they're using multiple languages.
Right.
And so what we can do is try and offer some system that benefits them in that they can use any language they want within our tools. So basically use a variety of tools, and we'll sell that as a subscription. So we came out with this announcement and said, hey, look, you can now buy our tools for subscription, and you could use anything you like. And it was very, very cheap. It was like for a personal license, it's like $5 a month or something like that, right? Which for many countries it's cheap. Like coffee costs more than that.
Nice.
And there was horrendous backlash. It was horrendous. Wow. Yes, it was painful. It was a hard 24, 48, 72 hours. Our community is extremely passionate. Our users are extremely passionate, and they just didn't like it. And you know how it is that it's the loud minority that are normally the ones that are very vocal about
the case, right?
something that they don't like. So they're like, no, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. That you shouldn't be doing this. And funnily enough, businesses didn't really give us negative feedback, but the individuals did. And we're a company where we sell our products bottom up, right? So we have people that are developers that like our products, and they, as you were saying yourself, with your folks, and then they ingrain that into the company. It's not a top down. We don't go and talk to some executive and say, hey, buy our products.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the majority of our users are individuals, but then most of our income comes from businesses. But it was the individuals, and we care about so much about the individuals, not because there are a lot of them, but because it's important for us. That's what made the community. So it was negative. It was very bad. The first reaction to the blog where we announced
comparatively, like what was the price for the license that you then converted to subscription? Because were they as upset about the economics? Because for a lot of people, especially individuals, subscription means that I don't have to lay out several $100s at a time. I'm laying out like $5, $10 a month. So I'm curious.
So the price wasn't actually expensive. It would actually work out cheaper. In the longer term, it would work out cheaper. And here's a fact for you. we have not raised our prices in the past 10 years. For
Wow.
10 years, we have not raised our prices. So it wasn't that. What happened, generally, the backlash was, this is a desktop application that I'm downloading and I'm buying. You have no right to take it away from me if I stop paying you. That was it,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Whereas I can sign up to Spotify, I can sign up to Amazon, Kindle, I can sign up to all of these things. And if I stop paying, you lose access to all the books, you
Hmm.
lose access to all the music. There was this idea that no, don't take the IDE away from me. I've paid for this. And now you're
Okay.
saying if I stop paying, you're not going to give it to me. Right. So it wasn't so much about the price, but it was about, why are you taking this away from me?
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
That was a negative backlash. So we received that backlash, and we basically came out with a blog post the next day, I think it was, with a simple title, which was just, "We're listening." We just said, "We're listening," and
Hmm.
we're listening to your feedback. And we took some time to listen to the feedback and try and say how we can try and go where we want to go, but at the same time, make sure that our customers don't feel betrayed or feel like we're
Sure.
trying to, screw them over or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
Having said that, there was a lot of people that also supported us. But if you look back, much of it came from people that didn't like the idea.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that story and being open about it. I mean, that was quite a
Well,
rocky
I mean, it's
transition.
also, and I think that led to a model which at the time didn't really exist, right? I mean, at the time, subscription for desktop applications, only one company really was doing it, which was Adobe. There
Hmm.
wasn't many others.
Yeah.
So or it was kind of like, again, this perception of, if it's a web application, you can charge me a subscription, but if it's something I'm downloading to my
Uh-huh.
computer, how dare you?
Right.
So what we did, we came up with this model which we call the fallback license. And the fallback license, essentially, and it's still active today and it still works. Essentially, what we said is, we said, okay, here's the deal. You can pay us on a monthly basis, or you can pay us on an annual basis. If you pay us on an annual basis, not only do you get, the typical, 10 months, 12 months for the price of 10, but you're going to get a fallback license. And what that means is that if you started your subscription on January the 1st, the version that was available January the 1st, even if you stop paying December 31st, you will still own that version.
Okay.
So we called
Okay.
that the fallback license, and it
Right.
seemed to make majority of folks happy. And that was the solution that we came up with.
Okay. And
So we're
that
kind
you're,
of like a hybrid, right? We're subscription, but
yeah.
then if you pay the whole year, you get something if you cannot afford to pay at some point, or you decide not to.
So are all of your IDEs now downloads and run natively on the PC or the computer,
All of
or
them.
do you okay, all of them. All right.
All of them. I mean, we have solutions now to connect via the web and run things over
Okay.
the web and stuff. But yes,
Hmm.
all of them download and run on the desktop.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Um, all right. Well, that's interesting. So what's next for you guys in terms of the product? You talked about you IDEs and you've done your own language as well. I believe it's Kotlin, right?
Yeah.
Um, what's kind of next for you guys? Are you looking at like cloud-based delivery of some of this software, or just kind of the
Yeah,
nature of what you do?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, we are focusing on two areas right now. One of them is we recently launched a product which is Code with Me, which essentially allows multiple people to be developing over the internet together, whether it's pair programming or mob programming or whatever.
Okay.
And we're creating the products and services around that. So we're selling that as a service now. So if you want to have multiple people sharing the same environment and pair programming, or pair programming threes or fours, you would be paying for a subscription service for that.
That seems
So
like
we're
that's a
expanding into this area.
there's a pretty big need for that, and I think it's got to only grow, given that our entire industry or the development industry has gone virtual, right? And it's pretty much going to stay that way. We're not really going back to the old ways of being in an office. So the ability for more people to collaborate in ways that are digital and in real time is just going to become more and more important, right?
Yeah. But I think that it's still funny that majority of developers still like their IDEs on their machines. It's kind of like, you know what I'm saying? It's like everything else is on the web, but no, I want to have my IDE on my powerful machine, especially with the new MacBooks that are out, right? It's like, yes, I can run an even faster IDE. So
The new old MacBooks, right?
yeah, the old new MacBooks, yeah, they're top notch, as I say.
Uh-huh. Right. Well, so you developed all of these IDEs, and you were talking a little while ago about the open source tools that are out there, and there's Eclipse and there's Visual Studio and things like that. Like, how are you guys differentiating from those and convincing developers that this is worth whatever the subscription fee is for that particular product?
Yeah, so one thing that we did back in 2010 was we released IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition, which basically was a cut down version of our IDE, and we made it completely open source. And
Okay.
the platform became open source. And then Google adopted the platform and built Android Studio on top of it.
Mm,
And all of our IDEs are built on that open source platform. It was a very, very risky move, right? Because it was kind of like saying we're going to essentially give a bunch of our stuff away for free. But it paid off. More people adopted the IDE. People started to use the free edition, and then they started to see the value in the paid edition. How do we differentiate? I always say that it's not about features, it's about experience. So if you take many of the open source solutions currently, they're very versatile and they try and please many different developers, many different environments, and they're very extensible. And the way that they do it is you basically download the base thing and then you start to add the plugin, the functionality you want, right? And sometimes you end up with plugins that aren't compatible, things don't work together, etc. We try and focus to make sure that when you download out of the box, everything works. You've got the complete experience. You don't have to go searching for plugins. You don't have to add new things. I mean, not that we don't have. We've got a marketplace of 4,000 plugins, but the base things that we have, we provide to you, and we try very, very hard to give you the best experience. And this is what we've been doing for the past 20 years, and it seems that people appreciate it. People still continue to pay. Our market is growing, our user base is growing, revenue is growing. So seems we're doing something okay.
Yeah. Are the majority of your subscribers individuals who want their own IDE, or are you finding it's more corporate, they're buying it for their entire team?
We have a good mix of everything.
Okay.
The majority of, the most of our revenue comes from corporate. But what the great thing is that the size of the companies is also very evenly distributed. So we don't have just very large customers. We've got large customers, we've got small and medium businesses, and we've got very small companies. But the majority of our users are individuals. However, the majority of the income comes from corporate customers because we've drastically cut down the price for individual licenses. So the individual licenses, if you are a one-person shop or if you're a sole trader, you're just one person, you can buy an individual license, a personal license, and it's literally around 50% cheaper than the commercial license that a company would buy.
Okay. So is that through market testing and you've just found that that's kind of the sweet spot? Because that could go the other way, right? You could have some corporate customers going, wait a minute, why am I paying more?
Yeah, well, according to the license terms, you don't really have an option. But because you can't buy, as a company, you can't buy 30 licenses individually named. It has to be the individuals that buy that license. But to be honest with you, our prices are quite cheap. Even the corporate prices are cheap. So we don't have that much pushback around, like, why am I paying this much? For companies, it's not that expensive.
So how can customers pay for this? Is credit card what you guys accept? Is that the primary method, or are you accepting others as well?
Yeah, I mean, the same as all sites. We've got payment providers. We work with some of the largest payment providers, and it's credit cards and purchase orders. We also have obviously resellers, because you know that some larger corporations need to have authorized resellers, so they go through resellers. There's multiple ways that you can purchase this.
So how have you guys dealt with that complexity as you've grown, right? To be able to sell all of those different ways.
We have a fault at times, which is the non-invented here syndrome, which I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's
I'm not, but I
basically,
like the name.
yeah, it's essentially let's just write our own stuff.
Okay.
So we started with a system to deal with our sales, and then at the time when we wanted to move to subscriptions, there wasn't really much on the market to be able to cope with all of the issues that we needed to resolve. So we basically developed the system ourselves. And then, funnily enough, some quite well-known companies reached out to me a few years later. They're like, "Are you selling that software as well? Because we could really use it. You know, we're switching to subscription, and we're facing a lot of issues
Mm-hmm.
because it's not easy. It actually isn't
No.
easy, especially when, one of the biggest challenges was you had a company with, let's say, 1,500 licenses that they had purchased at different times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had different life cycles, and you're like, now we need to consolidate all of this into a single subscription that renews on a single date, because you know how procurements are. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be 3 months renewing 300 licenses, in 4 months renewing another 400
Right.
licenses.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, really painful.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to take all of these things into account into the system that tries to help with consolidation of licenses, etc.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that's the exact sort of problem that we deal with, and why we exist is knowing that for larger subscription businesses, as they grow and get more complicated, all of the use cases that you were just talking about come into play. And a lot of
Yeah.
times what we have seen in our consulting practice is a merchant solves for a problem today, and maybe the platform that they go with works now, but it's kind of a walled garden, right? And if you want to start going out or need to go outside of that down the road, a lot of times you got to figure out workarounds. And that's just, now we've got a mixed bag of custom code and SaaS solutions here, and it just can put merchants in a
Yeah.
really bad spot.
Yeah. And it also evolves as well, right? I mean, things change, and
Right.
there's demands, and customers start to say, well, I want to do this or I want to do that. So it's an ever evolving market. But
Well,
I'm glad. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, then now throw in the external factors of PCI and CCPA and GDPR regulations and all of those things that are constantly changing. And yeah, your systems have to keep up.
Yeah, you often we were actually talking about this the other day with some friends of mine. They're like, he's just set up a company, and he pings me and he says this: "Do you get these requests that come in about like filling out a 500 sheet security form to make a sale?" We're like, yes, yes, and what you do? Well, we're like, sometimes they come for like, I want to purchase 3 licenses, which is like, I don't know, $1,000. Fill out this 500-page form. Like, really, really?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's becoming worse and worse every day, to be honest, in that sense.
Yeah. So do you guys just kind of take those case by case basis, or
Well,
have you created a
we've
policy
got
around it?
standard documents that
Okay.
we say like, okay, here is basically everything you want to know, and please read through it, and if you have any issues, let us know. Because I kind of know, and I don't know, I kind of assume that most of these things that you fill out, procurements don't really care that much about them either. It's just check boxes they have to fill out. They're like, yeah, I got this form. Yep. Did
Right.
you read through it? No, but I got it.
No, but I got it.
And yep,
Check the box.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yep. So it seems to be working. It just doesn't scale. You can't fill out even a 20-page form every time someone wants to buy 5 licenses. Or fortunately, it's not that number, right? It's normally larger companies with larger deals, but
Right.
still.
Right. But there's nothing more frustrating or time consuming than having to answer the same questions in very different formats. Right.
Yes.
Excel, some people throw them in Excel sheets or Word documents, or God forbid, a PDF that you got to print out, or, something like that. And their questions are always asked a little bit different, so that it makes it hard to copy and paste. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, those things can be painful.
Yeah, I especially like the Word documents where you've got the underscores, and then as you start typing, the underscores start to move.
Notes everything down.
The whole formatting goes down.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Good to commiserate. Switching a little bit here. Had a lot of recent conversations around just the market for developers in general and how it's just hotter than it's ever been. There's more opportunities than there's ever been. The demand and now what were a lot of times regional or local employers now going really certainly national, in some cases global, to find talent, right? How has that trend impacted you guys?
I mean, obviously, talking about the pandemic, unfortunately, we were a company that generally was not remote, and when the pandemic came into play, we fortunately managed to adapt very quickly to being remote, as I guess many companies did, right? I mean, I personally am remote. My team mostly is remote, but we're 2,000 people now, and about 1,500 of them were not remote at the time. And now a lot of the folks are coming and saying, I want to move to this country, or can I continue to work remotely, or can I do this? And then we start to have candidates from all over wanting to work. And I think that now we're in a situation where remote is no longer kind of like a great offering that a company could provide you to entice you to come and work for them. It's now kind of come to be expected, right? It's like every developer is like, well, yeah, I've got 60 different companies here giving me an offer to be able to work remote wherever I want, and I think that, to be honest with you, at the same time, I kind of feel that in certain regions and certain markets, the developer market has become a little bit overvalued, overrated, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like someone, recently we were discussing the topic of salaries and how, Silicon Valley companies are throwing $500,000 salaries and things like that at some developers. And it's kind of like become a little bit of a bubble, I would say, right? In this sense, because if you step out of some of these markets, things are radically different, right? Like, I mean, I live in Spain, and the salaries have not grown like that. A top developer here, senior developer here, for instance, could make something around $60,000, $70,000. Right? Yep. Wow. Someone with 12 years experience. Yes. And that's not even a junior starting salary in some parts of the world, right? And we're not, we're a developed country. We're one of the top ones, not the top ones, but so I do think that there's also a factor of maybe it's becoming a little bit too overblown in terms of demands and salaries.
Interesting. So has that, I mean, JetBrains' own strategy for hiring talent, has it always been global, or has that changed as a result of the pandemic?
It's generally been, I would say, global. I mean, we've never really been restricted to anywhere. I mean, we even before the pandemic, we had offices in the US, in Germany, in Russia, in Amsterdam, in Netherlands, in the Czech Republic. So we've had offices everywhere, and we've always had people, applying from all places, and remote as well. The problem with remote is, and this is actually an issue that needs to be resolved, is that it's still very difficult to hire developers that are remote unless you have some kind of entity or legal entity in a specific country. So, for example, if you're in the US, I don't know how much it differs from state to state, but I'm guessing that you generally don't have an issue as a company to hire someone that is based in Minnesota and you're based in San Diego, right?
There's a few considerations, but it's not material.
Right. Whereas, ironically, the EU, for instance, take the European Union, right, which is meant to make it's very easy for me to get up from Spain without any paperwork, go to Italy and get a job. Nothing. However, if I want to work for a company in Italy from Spain, it's not that easy. It's not that straightforward. Exactly. And the cost is extremely high, right? And this needs to change. I mean, this needs to be made much easier if we want to try and continue to promote this cross country and remote work that we're talking about.
Well, that's interesting, and that kind of points to why, in the US here, we're seeing the Silicon Valley companies primarily going national and raising, developer salaries everywhere because now, they're like, well, I don't care where they are, I just need them. So, but
Exactly.
if there's a barrier there to going to Spain or other places in the world, then, they're like, they might go, well, I don't want to start going into another country, I'll just pay more here. That might be
Yeah.
one of the factors that's just causing it to be so regional to your point and not global all at the same time being raised.
Yeah. So it's it's even the companies that want to hire remote like us, and we do, but it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of extra things that you have to go through to say, well, I want to hire a developer, for instance, in Poland, and I don't have a JetBrains Poland, right? So it's things that you have to do to get that going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, earlier you were talking about, the transition from licenses over to subscription. Are there any other subscription stories that stick out to you as you guys have grown and scaled where you were thinking, man, if we had just kind of known this before we took that leap or took that step or maybe launched a new product, we would have done things a bit differently?
Well, I think the I mean, I think that launching any product that comes at a subscription, first of all, I'm pricing any product is difficult, right?
Hmm.
To find that sweet spot that it's good for you and it's good for the customer. Subscriptions is even harder, I think, to a certain extent, especially when you start to provide these kind of services that are, you got the free tier, you got the the base tier, and then you've got the enterprise tier, and you've got the premium enterprise tier and stuff like that. And it is still challenging. It still is, right? How can you try and uh, simplify the pricing and not make it difficult for customers to understand everything that they're getting, and at the same time make sure that you're not giving things away for free, right? I don't know if there's a like yeah, I wish there was some I don't know, loads of material on that to try and figure out how to do this properly, because it's still a struggle. It
Yeah.
really is. It's still
Yeah.
difficult. And every product and service that now we're selling essentially is, with the exception of one or two products, everything is basically on a subscription model.
Do you guys play around with trials or, discount periods and things like that to try to get people to convert?
Well, I mean, yes and no. We do special offers, for instance, and stuff like that. I mean, one of the things that we have in our subscription model, which I think was also kind of innovative at the time, was a loyalty model in which, if you pay, let's say one of our tool costs $100, right? The second year you get a 20% discount on the renewal.
Hmm.
The third year you get 40% discount, and then from there on you 40% discount. So as soon as you stay with us for 3 years onwards, you're basically paying 40%, and as long as you keep that subscription active. If you lose it, there's a grace period, um, and if you're past that grace period, then you would have to pay the full subscription rate. I think that's worked out very well for us, because it's helped people say, well, this is good. If I don't renew, I could actually lose quite a bit next time.
I love that model, and it's always been surprising to me that more subscription businesses don't think about it that way because there's a high cost to acquiring a customer for sure. But once you do, they're more profitable every single year to you, right?
Yeah,
Plus, they're your
yeah,
most loyal customers. But so many
exactly.
subscription businesses instead focus on the inverse, give all of the discounts to the new customers just to get them on board, and yet are charging full freight to all of these people who have been there for years. So, what a
Yeah,
better way to encourage not only loyalty, but longevity. of, hey,
Yeah,
I get the longer I keep this product, the more of a discount I'm going to get. That's motivating me to stay.
yeah,
So it's great to
exactly.
hear that that's worked well for
Uh,
you guys.
yeah, it does, and it also is, as you say, it's kind of rewarding the customer, saying, we thank you for staying with
Mhm.
us, right?
Yeah.
Which is important. So it works well for us, I think, and I don't think that, in hindsight, um, I don't think we would change the way that we would do that.
Well, Hadi, this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed the stories and all of the transparency that you've had with us about your journey along the way. For anybody that wants to check out any of the products, tell us what the website is. And for any listeners that might have some questions for you, what's the best way to get in contact?
Yeah, so it's the website is jetbrains.com, and you can reach me either on Twitter with HHARIRI or Hadi at jetbrains.com. That's HADI at jetbrains.com.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much. Really enjoyed the conversation today, and best
Thank
of
you.
luck to you and
Likewise.
the whole JetBrains team.